What is shaking, you guys? Welcome back to the Let's Go Win podcast. You're in for a treat today. We are definitely talking about things I'm passionate about, and this gentleman has a lot of value to bring. Zach White is known around the world for changing the game in career coaching for engineering leaders. He has worked with hundreds of leaders at top companies worldwide to achieve breakthrough results and escape burnout. Zach is the founder and CEO of Oasis of Courage, a fast-growing company with unique and proven coaching programs exclusively for engineers. He also hosts a top-rated show, the Happy Engineer podcast. So Zach, man, a lot of people face burnout. Thank you for being here, brother. I'm excited to hear what you're working on.
Oh, JM, it's awesome to be here. Love what you're doing with Let's Go Win, and it's an honor. Well, thanks for the invite, man.
It's truly my pleasure. So I guess I'll start with how did you get to where you got to in terms of working with, obviously, engineering? Sounds like it would be your background. I don't know that to be certain, but the subject of burnout, I think, is applicable across all fields. So
absolutely
going to apply. But how did you get to where you're at, man? I'm just kind of give me that backstory.
Well, you're absolutely right that the reason engineering and engineering leadership became the niche that I focus on with my work today is because I'm an engineer at heart. Got my mechanical engineering degree from Purdue, boiler up for all the Boilermakers out there, and jumped right into my career just like any other young aspiring for success engineer would, and got a great job. JM, hustled, super proud to earn an opportunity in a leadership development program, and everything was going the way it's supposed to go, right? I got the college degree, I got the job, and did what everybody does, right? Just started hustling towards whatever this idea of success is. And I only had one strategy, JM, and that was to work harder and get smarter. That was my strategy for success. If you'd said, hey, let's go win back in 2008, 2009, that's all I knew how to do. And short version of a long story, we can unpack as much as you want, JM, but that strategy led me on a one-way street to rock bottom burnout. I crashed hard. I ended up divorced, depressed, embarrassed, and everything that I thought was going well, none of that mattered. It all came crumbling down around me, and the promotions and the paychecks suddenly didn't make any difference to the quality of my life. And it was in the process of recovering from that, grinding my face against rock bottom, that I discovered the things that we now coach and train engineering leaders in today to help prevent going down that same road.
Yeah, it is interesting how common this story is, because man, you did everything right, and you know, according to the plan, which is go to school, get your degree, go kick ass at a career, and yet very little fulfillment, divorce rates high, poor habits are taking place. Why, man? What are we missing here, brother? What is I mean, it's a big overall question, but it's obvious there's something when we leave school, whether it's high school or college, we're lacking some life skills, brother.
No doubt. James, you're right. It's a big question, but I'll highlight two things that I see with every single client I've ever coached. One of them is that coming out of school, coming out of college, we don't have any real paradigm or understanding of how to go into life without these set, planned, cadenced milestones of success that come our entire lives leading up to that point. So everything happens one semester at a time. Everything's about getting the grade, passing the test, being able to regurgitate the knowledge and move on to the next chapter, the next level, etc. And then you step out into your career, and I work with engineers, but to your point, it doesn't matter what you do. And suddenly you're in this new environment where there is no homework assignment with single answer. It's a totally different challenge. And there's no end to the semester, Jay. It's like you just keep going and it doesn't end, and it's unclear. Like where are the milestones, and what am I actually going for, and how do you win at this new game? And it's not a game whose rules are taught to us when we're young. And most of us learn them by osmosis or by just watching the people around us. And frankly, they're not great teachers. To your point, most people are failing at this game. And so we don't have any paradigm for how to succeed. That's problem one. Problem two is that burnout is really sneaky. And we can talk more about this, but a lot of people think of burnout as that moment I mentioned earlier. It's that rock bottom moment. It's when you truly flame out. There's just nothing left in the tank. But burnout starts way before that moment. And I see it in our clients. Burnout begins not when your tank is empty, JM. Burnout begins the moment you start burning fuel faster than you're filling the tank. And that can happen years before you actually hit the ground. And we aren't sensitive and aware of how that's affecting us until it's too late.
Yeah, so I want to take you back to that moment where, as you eloquently put it, you're grinding your face on rock bottom. It's a great visual, by the way. Where's your head, man? And how are you like, all right, I'm gonna figure this the heck out? Or oftentimes that spiral, that cycle just keeps going and repeats, and we've seen it. 5 years pass by and nothing's changed. And man, now we're really talking about some mental health challenges, some mental wellness challenges. So where was your mindset at that point, brother?
Let me back up maybe even 2 years before the face grinding experience. I had big problems in my life, JM, but I didn't want to admit it. And I lied to myself about how things were going. I kept all those problems secret and in isolation. I tried to deal with it on my own. I didn't tell anybody. I didn't entrust that to anyone. I didn't get help. And I presented to the world that everything was fine, but in the background, I was really struggling. And to your point, I left it that way for years. 2 or 3 years, my life really was not in a good place. I was very unhappy. My marriage was not going well. All the signs that this wasn't going to end well were there. And I can look back now and say I literally chose to ignore those warning signs. I was not ignorant, but I was afraid, and I didn't know how to solve it. And Jim, what I was good at was career. So I just spent more time doing the things that I was good at, and that had a little bit of fulfillment and satisfaction and happiness associated with success at work. And I ignored the things that were, really dragging me down. So that was like a whole phase of this, was just enduring this pain where work and home it's such a horrible place. Then, when I actually hit that rock bottom, Jim, is a really, it's a hard moment for me. But I was on a work trip, everything going great, right? I'm doing my thing. I'm crushing it as an engineer. I'm so proud of my success, blah, blah, blah. Well, I come home, what's supposed to be home to my wife, to a nice relaxing dinner after a work trip. And instead I come home to an empty house and a note on the table that says, hey, I left. I'm at my parents'. I don't think this is going to work. We need to end this. And the whole world came to a screeching halt, Jim. It was the absolute worst thing I could have imagined for my life at that time. Because, rewind, I'm 13 years old. My mom comes home to a note from my dad. Same thing. My dad disappears. I still don't have a relationship with him to this day. And I hated the idea of divorce because it ruined my childhood. And I told myself I would never get divorced. And then here I had this world-shattering moment where it's like a flashback. So all the trauma and pain of my childhood comes back. All the I can't believe this is happening in the present is flooding in. And you want to know where my head was at right there? Nowhere. Just blank in pain and suffering. I couldn't think about anything. And it was days before I could kind of get any sense of what's going on in my world.
Yeah, and I have to imagine I'm there's obviously some good at the end of this tunnel, but I think a big part of your work, or certainly because my story, I didn't end up in the divorce, but it wasn't all that dissimilar, right? Sweep everything under the rug. It's fine. We're just not going to deal with it. Put a smile on your face, keep grinding. but then you have that moment that like, okay, time to wake the F up, man. It's like, come on, let's shake you to the core. I don't know why it has to be that way, man. And so now I'm picturing you with a bunch of engineers, and I'm going to generalize. These are not people that are like, hey, let's talk about our feelings. Let's deal with some of this stuff. This is people that are pretty analytical, and
Absolutely.
they're really good at their job for a reason. So here you are in this horrible place where you're like, okay, I don't want what happened to my childhood. It's happening. All right, I'm going to pick myself off the ground. Was there a specific thing that got you off the ground? What was it, Zach, that really back up?
Yeah, James, so you're absolutely right. And I was a stereotypical engineer in that sense. I didn't have any outlets to talk about the emotions and all the challenges, and I kept it to myself that whole time. And the first thing that changed when I hit that place of like, wow, my life is falling apart, was the willingness to extend that trust and ask for help. And it began with my family. You know, I called my sister, I called my mom and just said, hey, I need to tell you what's going on. I haven't been completely honest. My marriage hasn't been good for a long time, but this is what's happening. Of course, this is, you know, sobbing in tears, which is for me just so embarrassing. I don't know how to handle this. And what was amazing is I was expecting, you know, not necessarily like judgment or anything. These are my family. They love me. But what I was not expecting was the amount of love and grace and compassion and just how can we help and what do you need, and the instant sense of support that I wasn't going to go through this alone. And that was huge. To get out of this idea of isolation. You know, isolation is the enemy of excellence. Isolation creates so many problems in our lives when we hide what's not working. So that was step one. And then at the counsel of my family, I went out and hired a professional therapist to work through everything that I was dealing with. And again, a really humbling thing, Jay. Like the last thing I wanted to do was go sit in a therapist's office on the couch and process all this. But that decision was so critical because it was something I hadn't ever done. It wasn't a part of my approach. And of course, you know, whether you've had that experience or not, everybody can decide for themselves. But I would say now, man, it's essential. You've got to create some place, you know, at a minimum, a close friend who you really, really trust. But if you're in a dark place, if you're burned out, if you feel depressed, if you feel overwhelmed with anxiety or stress, or go get help. So that was step one, Jay. I had to get out of this, like, I can handle it, this hero, lone wolf, like I'm smart enough to figure everything out in my world, and just admit I don't got this and go get help.
It is fascinating how we create this world, which, by the way, we're terrible about knowing how people are going to react, what they're going to say, what they're thinking, but we all do it, right? Like, I can't be honest with my family because, and then spout out whatever story. Just so we're all clear, you don't know. None of us know, and yet we continue to do this. And look, this is conditioned response, and maybe it's protection. I don't know, but it is fascinating. So I love that your family brought you in and said, look, you know, here's a shoulder crying and here's a solution. And like, we're here for you. We're family.
Yeah.
All right. So I want to get into becoming a lifestyle engineer, because like a good engineer, there's steps and there's processes and there's ways to now avoid this, I'm guessing, which again, systems are beautiful, man, because I don't want anybody to go through, just like you don't want anybody to go through grinding their face on rock bottom.
That's right. So I told you I'm a mechanical engineer from Purdue, but the journey that I went through, I got my lifestyle engineering degree in the School of Hard Knocks, if you will. And the concept of lifestyle engineering is exactly what you described, JM, recognizing that there are proven, repeatable systems and steps and habits that you can build in your life that will not only help you prevent rock bottom burnout moments, but accelerate the results and the successes that you want in your life, the goals that you have, and maximize happiness and fulfillment and purpose in the moment. And we just have to learn them and commit ourselves to execute them and take action in the face of fear. And so you mentioned earlier, my company's name is Oasis of Courage. And what I recognized for the personality type of the stereotypical engineer, and this is true for all kinds of people, it's not just engineers, but we really thrive on the steps in the process. Give me A, then B, then C. But at the same time, a lot of life is not a simple ABC process. It can be messy. Building momentum can be messy. And so we needed this balance of, look, here's some frameworks. Here's the tools. Here's the steps you can take. Here's what you need to pay attention to read the metrics, the gauges on the dashboard of your life, so to speak. But at the same time, we need to have the courage to have the hard conversation, to get out of the spirit of isolation, to create a safe place with other people you trust, to be able to work through the messy bits. And when you do those together, it's absolutely astounding what you can create when you talk about lifestyle, which is not just about wealth, by the way. When people hear the word lifestyle, they think, how rich am I? That's not what we're talking about. Lifestyle engineering can include being incredibly rich and wealthy. If that's what you want, by all means, let's go do that. But the lifestyle of your dreams is that experience, that quality of life that you have every day. Do you want more flexibility? Do you want better relationships? Do you want a life partner? Do you want to have a family? Do you want to move? Like, what is the from dawn till dusk experience you want to create on the whole in your life? And what actions do you need to take to go make that happen? That's what being a lifestyle engineer is all about. And it's so fun to watch somebody get out of what I call the default life. We're just on autopilot. We're just cruising. We're letting it happen around us and move into a designed life. Being intentional, setting up what you want, and then taking courageous action to go make it happen.
Yeah, man, that's such a good point on living life by design, being intentional. I don't know where it starts, but we get in this comfort zone, and we all know when you're comfortable, you're not growing. And when you're not growing, typically you get bored. And when you get bored, bad things start to happen.
Totally.
But I don't recall why. Maybe we just were never taught, like, hey man, go get this and be intentional every single day. I remember not doing that. But now, because once you open Pandora's box, that's what it is, man. You wake up and you're just going to go get it. So that's one thought. And then the other thought that you've brought up a couple times that I don't want to miss is you've said isolation a couple times and how destructive that was.
Yeah.
To you getting moving is kind of the way I took that, is to you really starting to repair and heal and grow. Talk to me a little bit more about isolation and ensuring that we don't do that. How do we go about setting ourselves up for success and not failure? Because often I think I 100% agree with you. Isolation is never a good thing. Nothing positive comes from it.
100% agree.
But also surrounding ourselves with the wrong humans isn't great either. So talk to me about from an engineer's point of view. How do we design that, brother?
Yeah, the 2 points you made are really actually connected to answering this. And so let me go back to the idea of like that comfort zone really fast, because they're related. If we get out of the conscious mind for a second and we just talk about what's happening on autopilot in our nervous system, the unconscious, the subconscious, the autonomic nervous system, what's that all about? Well, here's the kicker. A lot of people who are into personal development would have read these kinds of numbers. Neuroscience is showing us some really cool things, but it's like 95% of the horsepower of your brain, your mind, is in the subconscious, right? The real computing power of what's happening between our ears is totally blind to us. It's in the subconscious. And the problem is that whole system is wired for survival, not for success. Okay, so 95% of the energy and the horsepower of your brain is just trying to keep you alive, not trying to help you thrive and go get the goals of your life. And so it's no judgment on anybody if you get stuck in a rut or you end up in that comfort zone, because frankly, the majority of your nervous system is trying to pull you there. And it really does take intention and conscious action to pull out of that. So now, isolation. Why is that such a scary, dangerous thing? And why is it the enemy of excellence, et cetera? Well, it's exactly related to this. When you're alone and you're not really engaged in community, which is how we were designed to be part of a tribe, then you don't have these reference points or the accountability and challenge to pull yourself into a conscious place of intention and action. And it's so easy to let the 95% take over and stay in that comfort zone because there's nobody around you challenging you to be at your best. It's like when you're on a team of A players, you don't want to be the one dogging it. It's like, I'm not going to run at 50% speed when everybody else is sprinting because I don't want to be the guy at the back of the line. And so being in community is a really important part of how we overcome falling into comfort zones and ruts or the grind of life and not actually reaching our full potential, because we need that accountability and interaction to challenge us, to get us out of autopilot and into intentional action. So that's one reason I'm so big on filling your inner circle with the right people. Now, James, to your point, it's like you can take one bad thing, isolation, and replace it with another bad thing, which is surrounding yourself with the wrong people. And so, Jim Rohn gets credit, I think, for saying it, but I'm sure every grandfather of personal development has said it at some point, that we become the average of the 5 people we spend the most time with. And I think that's incredibly true in every domain of your life. So it's really simple to me. How do you know who the right people are to spend time with? It starts with your vision. Who do you want to become? What results do you want to create in your life, in your career, in your family, in your health, you name it. And then take that vision of what you want and match it up against the average of the 5 people you're spending the most time with. And if it doesn't align or pull you in the right direction, then it's time to make some tough changes on who you're hanging out with.
Yeah, man, you just, I study this stuff, but the way you said the survival, right? The way you were talking about the subconscious. So that divorce is the saber-toothed tiger, right? To go back to caveman days.
Totally.
That's like, hey, wake up, let's start to move because life is actually pretty bad now. I had actually never kind of put those two together, but only the way an engineer can, you did. You also talk about, obviously, the importance of mindset. And as you see over my shoulder, mindset clearly matters.
Yes.
And I think people have heard that. And people are like, okay, got it. My mindset matters. But let's talk about some of the hows as an engineer.
Yes.
I'm going to go back to it because, again, what fascinates me about the way your brain works, I'm generalizing with engineers. You're able to put things into a way that, okay, now it fits, and it's like a puzzle, and it's really fascinating, where mine is a little bit more like scattered. But I think we're saying such a similar idea, and I want to hear the tangible parts of, all right, my mindset matters. How do I go about it, Zach? How do I really make sure on a daily my mindset is sharp and it's supporting my goals and my vision and where I want to go?
Yeah. So I'll focus on that mechanical piece of how do we execute a mindset transformation and actually make progress in this. And I'm going to make the assumption that if anybody needs ideas of like what is a great mindset, JM, you've got 100 episodes of fantastic content around that. People can dive in and listen to what you do or work with you even better. Go get the insights they need. But let's take that 95% subconscious, 5% conscious concept for a moment, because it's going to set up the mechanics of how do we do this. Well, think of it this way. The 5%, the conscious part of your mind, is making decisions all day of what inputs are we going to send to the subconscious? What thoughts am I going to think? And a lot of times we don't realize that we have some choice. We have influence over that, right? I have a choice whether or not to watch, this trash on Facebook or fill my feed with inspirational content and people who have good things to say about the world. I have a choice to sit and read, some random romance novel that you might find entertaining, or to read a personal development book is not the one's right or wrong, by the way. Let's just be really clear. There's no judgment about this. It's not a values conversation. You need to choose for yourself what you want, but you have a choice. That's what I want you to remember. So the 5% is making constant choices all day long of what you're going to fill your subconscious mind with. And here's how I want you to picture that 95%. It's just a sponge. It's taking all the data of the five senses that we have in our amazing bodies, and it's computing all that data. And it's just saying, what's happening? What's happening? And which of these things that are happening are leading towards things that feel good, and which ones that are happening are leading towards pain or suffering? And we're just going to try to figure out how to help JM have more of that good stuff and less of that bad stuff. For today's conversation, we'll keep it that simple, right? Your subconscious is simply trying to compute what's the safest, most secure way to still feel some happiness and mitigate some pain. And here's the kicker, right? If it's not sure about the safety part, it'll keep you enduring pain as long as it's safe pain all day long. So don't mistake this to think that your subconscious is always pursuing pleasure. It's not. It's pursuing safety. It's pursuing survival. So now, mindset matters. Why does it matter? Well, because if the automatic stuff happening in that 95% is pulling you into habits and behaviors and actions that are not serving your goals and not serving your purpose in life, that's just going to keep happening every single time until we reprogram it. So I'll keep the engineering lingo going here. Imagine it's a piece of software code, right? And your whole life has gone into reprogramming it to what it is at this moment. Well, if we want to change that, we got to take that 5% and say, all right, here's a new piece of code that I want to install into my life. We'll take a really simple example. Instead of believing that I'm an idiot because I keep failing at this thing that I've tried over and over, I'm an idiot. Well, that's not a piece of code that I want in my subconscious mind, that every time I have it's like, oh, I'm an idiot. I'm such an idiot. I'm such an idiot. That's negative self-talk and that downward spiral that begins. So I'm going to install a new mindset that I'm intelligent and I'm learning more every day. I may not have every answer yet, but I'm capable of growth and I'm learning every day. That's my new piece of code. Well, here's what people want to do, JM. They want to just put it on a note card or on the wall and say, okay, I've got it. I know that's the new thing. But what actually is going to happen is the first time you think about it, your subconscious is going to say, okay, interesting. Here's a new piece of code. I've never seen this one before. It's new for me. And it's going to make a decision. Well, which one should we go with? The one that we've heard 1,000 times in the last month that's worked every single time? Or this new one that actually Zach doesn't even sound like he really believes it yet. He's kind of half-hearted. There's no conviction there. Like, I'm not sure. Well, it's got this rut, this pathway towards the one you've always done. And it's like, that's the safe one. I'm going to keep that going. But JM, if every day, 10 times a day, 100 times a day, with more emotion, more energy. Oh, and by the way, JM's telling me this, and someone else is telling me this, and I'm reading about this, and I'm seeing other successful people doing this. Suddenly, the subconscious is like, oh, this is interesting. We're getting this input every day. He really believes it. He really wants this. And over time, it starts to recognize, well, this must be the code snippet that Zach actually wants to live by. And now it starts to become the default. And over time, you rewrite this code base of your subconscious mind to say, gosh, this must be true. Zach must be a kind of person who's learning and constantly growing. And now that becomes an automatic response. So mindset transformation, thinking new thoughts on autopilot by default, requires two things: repetition and the intensity of emotion and energy to help your subconscious mind really be aware that this matters, right? Your subconscious pays attention to things that have a lot of energy or emotion around them. So if you want to accelerate transformation of the way that you think by, this automatic process, which, by the way, do you want to talk about game changer for your life? These kinds of shifts, it may seem small as we're talking right now, but gosh, James, I mean, these are huge, huge changes when you talk about compounding over the long term. But it begins with repetition and energy, repetition and emotion around that new thought that you want to program into your subconscious mind. One time will never do it, right? It's got to be a commitment. And that's where that conscious mind, you've got to use that 5% in an intelligent way, right? And get help, get a coach, work with JM, do these things because it makes a huge, huge difference.
I love That was so good, by the way. When we apply a scientific brain to what some people consider, oh man, that's out there. That's all energy. No, no, this is based on science. And
Absolutely.
you got to repeat it. And the way you said that with the code, that was so good. Like it's heard this 1,000 million, whatever times versus this one time. We got to reinforce and reinforce and reinforce.
That's right.
Really well done. You have a topic on here that I'm really excited to talk about, which is crushing the comfort zone and creating courage.
Yes.
All right. So courage is a big word in my world. I believe courage is like a muscle. It gets stronger the more we use it. And I also believe without courage, we really can't accomplish most of our endeavors. So how are we going to go about creating this courage, Zach? Because I'm all in. I
Totally.
I'm hook, line, and sinker. I'm ready to go.
Well, JM, you and I are brothers on this topic, and I know we haven't hung out much, but we're going to get along great in the future because I agree with 100% of what you just said. And here's a picture that I think of in my life every day. When I wake up in the morning, I imagine myself waking up square right in the middle, smack dab in my comfort zone. You know, I roll out of bed and it's like I'm literally so comfortable. You don't even want to get out of bed, right? It's like it's more comfortable to just stay in bed than to get out of bed, right? It takes an ounce of courage just to say I'm going to go face the day. We all are going to go do hard things and deal with hard people. So getting out of that bed is my first act of courage, just to get my feet on the floor, say thank you for a great day ahead and get moving. So I wake up right in the middle of my comfort zone. And here's what the challenge is. If I want to grow my life, okay, what does that mean? It could be grow in my intelligence, could be grow in my income, grow in the quality of my relationships. Like I want more. I want increase. I want more experiences. I want to travel more. I want to do this. Okay, if I want to grow today, then it is not an option. I must get out of my comfort zone. Because you said it earlier, we do not grow by staying in the comfort zone. All your limitations are found inside your comfort zone. So my job today is to go get to the edge of my comfort zone and go beyond it. Take a step beyond. Well, JM, right there at the edge of my comfort zone is a good old friend of mine known as fear. And fear has 1,000 faces. You know, fear may look like stress to you. Fear may look like being overwhelmed to you. Fear may look like anger to you. Like it can manifest in a lot of ways, but fear is there to greet me. And so why courage? It's because the classic favorite definition you'll hear a lot, courage is that willingness not to be fearless. That's foolish. There's no such thing as being fearless. It's to face that fear and take the step anyway. It's to take the action in the face of that fear, which for me is a daily non-negotiable. I want to do something every single day that scares me or face a fear in my life every single day because it is like going to the gym. How do we crush comfort and create courage? It's just imagine that wall around your life that is your comfort zone. And that wall being created by this automatic part of your nervous system that says, Zach, don't do it. There's saber-toothed tigers on the other side of the wall. Like, please stay in the comfort zone. And I'm going to walk right up to it. I'm going to crush that wall. I'm going to crush that fear. And I'm going to create courage by living outside my comfort zone. That's where it's created. And I call it a C4 life. You know, C4 is the acronym. It's crush, comfort, create courage. C4 happens to be an explosive. And I like that because it is... You know, you've had this experience, I'm sure, Jay, and when you get to that moment of resistance where fear is holding you back and you don't want to do it, and there's that breakthrough moment when you actually just do it anyway. You make the decision or you make the phone call or you spend the money on the coach or you do the thing that was scary to do. It's like as soon as you get through that, there's this liberating feeling. It's this emotion of like, it can really be an explosive kind of moment. And so that's what I coach every engineering leader I work with on is, look, you can learn as much as you want inside your comfort zone, and it will do nothing for you, right? Sitting at the library, reading every book, you can have all the right information. But until you step outside the comfort zone and apply that, you're not creating courage at all, nor are you growing and getting the results that you say you want. So let's stop worrying about more tactics and more knowledge. That's rarely the problem. It's more about having that intention to say, which area of my life am I going to go face fear and take the next step?
So I love that. C4, go through that.
Crush comfort, create courage. C4, crush comfort, create courage. It's a life mantra for me. C4 life.
Oh, man. As people are getting into the new year, and they wrote down their goals, and how do we stay clear on a daily, Zach, so that, because all of this is coming down to, look, once I am clear on what I want, now, as you said, execute, take action. I love getting out of bed as my first form of courage. Like, give yourself a high five. Great job.
Yeah.
How do we keep that clarity, brother, and intention on a daily basis?
First thing, do less. I really love New Year's resolutions and the energy of Jan 1 when we flip that calendar over. And some of my engineering clients will come to me and say, Zach, I put together all my goals for the year. And they'll show me a list of 30, 40, 50 goals for 2023. And it's like, wow, you're so glad that you want so much in your life. And I also have a bucket list with 100 plus things on it. I think that's really fun and powerful to have a lot that you're going after in your life. But when it comes to the consistency and really moving the needle, to your comment, JM, the first thing I tell everybody is focus on less. Do less, right? So pick the most important 2 or 3 things to focus on first in the 90 days of Q1 2023, right? From January through March. Like, let's focus on less. But then the other piece for me is I use what's called the playbook. So for any of my clients who work with me, we talk about mindset. That's the foundation. We talk about the 4 pillars of strategy, tactics, and tools, which are purpose, priority, productivity, and people. I know we don't have time to talk about all those, but I have these 4 pillars. But on top, the roof that connects the lifestyle engineering blueprint together is our playbook, because action is where results happen, not knowledge. So the pillars don't matter if we don't apply it. And the whole playbook concept is built on rhythm, daily rhythm, weekly rhythm, quarterly rhythm, yearly rhythm. Life and nature shows us this. The sun we're rotating the sun. We got this daily rhythm of life that we see, our circadian rhythm that's happening in nature. The week, the whole world is built around weeks, whether you come from a Judeo-Christian worldview of 7-day creation, or it doesn't matter. We all have it, right? The calendar is Sunday to Saturday. And so this 7-day period, it's a really important one to look at life and reflect, hey, how did I do in the last week? Where do I need to focus next? And then seasons. It's really tough to set a goal that's 12 or 24 months away. That's so far, and we're not good at that cognitively. And, I live here in Michigan. It's freaking winter right now as we're recording this, but we have 4 seasons. And it's a good trigger. It's a good thing from nature to look at. Say, hey, why don't I break this year up in these 90-day chunks and re-examine how I'm doing and where I need to focus every 90 days. And then a trip around the sun, the year. These 4 rhythms that are reflected in nature are the 4 rhythms that I build the discipline of my goal setting around. So you might hear that and say, gosh, Zach, that's like a lot to do. No, it isn't. You're already overthinking it. It takes a couple minutes a day. JM, I wake up and I literally take 2 to 5 minutes for a very quick, focused intention to say, hey, what are the big 2 or 3 goals I'm working on right now? Is there anything I need to accomplish today or put on my calendar today to move the needle? Let's just get clear, lock and load, go. That could be a to-do list. That could be on your calendar, whatever system works for you. And then before I go to bed, I just take another 2 minutes and say, did I do the things I said I needed to do today? If yes, I'm going to celebrate that. And if no, what happened? Can I learn anything from what happened today? Did something else come in that was a priority? Have some compassion for myself. Or was I just lazy? All right, I'm going to get after it tomorrow. Not going to let that happen again. And then same thing on the weekly, just a quick reflection. How did the week go? Because sometimes within the course of any given day, you'll have good days and bad days. But let's look at the week. Same thing, couple minutes, right? Keep it really simple. So that's for me the approach. And then, Jam, we talked about it earlier. You want to put rocket fuel into this, get an accountability partner. Get someone else involved. Don't do it alone. When you know that you're going to talk to somebody every Saturday before breakfast or something about how the week went, you don't want to show up to that meeting every Saturday with nothing to report. And so get help. It's not weakness to get help. It's strength. All right? I hate this idea that I can't do it alone. I need help. That makes me a weak person. Absolutely not. Every successful person I know asks for help all the time and keeps asking until they get it. So go get help.
Do less, accomplish more, get help, get a coach.
Boom.
It's so good, man. Any open forum items? We're almost out of time, and man, I could talk to you for a long time. Anything I didn't ask you that you want to make sure to share before we kind of wrap up, Zach?
I'll just put an exclamation point on something you mentioned right at the beginning of our conversation, JM, that this isn't just for engineers, right? Everything we've talked about today, this is for everybody. I have a passion for the engineering discipline because it's the world I came from. And frankly, a lot of technology and engineering jobs and company cultures are really toxic and creating a lot of burnout. So that's an area that I focus. But I just want everybody to know this whole idea that mindset matters, that it's not about how much you know, but how much courageous action you're taking outside your comfort zone. Like, these things are for everyone. And having systems in your life for predictable success also for everyone. That's not just for engineers either. And so for the artists out there, people who might think, I'm a creative, I don't resonate with what Zach's saying. I just want to challenge that and say, listen, even the artist needs a process for how they're going to approach the canvas every day. You got to put your paint on the palette. You got to clean your brushes. You've got to set aside time where you're actually going to put the brush on the canvas. And that's a process and a system too. So this is not just for people who are logical and analytical and do technology for a living. It's for everybody. And the sooner we can adopt that and recognize, I don't have an excuse, anybody can do this and anybody can succeed at this, the sooner we can start to make tremendous progress.
So good, man. I don't look, we don't want anybody rubbing their face on rock bottom. That visual's stuck for the rest of the day. Brother, you were awesome. So good. Where can people connect with you online? Best place to really hear more about what you're doing, Zach, whether they're an engineer or not.
Yeah. So you mentioned it earlier. I'm host of my own show, the Happy Engineer Podcast. And if people want to hear more of this type of content, again, it's not just for engineers. Please feel free, whatever platform you're listening to, Let's Go Win on, we'll be there. So The Happy Engineer, you can find me there, but also thehappyengineerpodcast.com. If you go hit that URL, of course, all the content from the podcast and bonus content is there. But you can also reach out to me. You can get a phone call set up with my team if you want to talk more about how to get help on any of these topics or just learn about what we're doing. Maybe you know an engineer who is struggling or burned out right now and you want to point them my direction. That would be the best place to go. So thehappyengineerpodcast.com.
Brother, it's you have a wealth of knowledge. The way you put these things into really simple terms and really made it basic and profound at the same time. It was an awesome conversation. Thank you so much for coming on.
JM, I'm honored, and I'll just acknowledge you for the incredible work you're doing with Let's Go Win and your companies and the obvious results that the people you work with are getting. I just encourage everybody, if you haven't talked to this guy, go make it happen. And thanks again for the invite. This has been awesome.
What a kind guest, man. This guy has promoted me way more than I ever would. He is awesome. I'll give one selfless plug. Share this, subscribe, review, get it out there. Everyone needs to hear what Zach was talking about. We all face burnout at some time, and he gave you real, tangible results that you can use today. So you guys, until next time, remember your mindset does matter. I appreciate you all. We'll talk soon. Thank you so much for listening. If this content is delivering value to you, please make sure to subscribe, rate, and review us. That helps us build this community, and that is what we are all about. Building this community as big as we can, helping as many people as we can, and deliver as much value as possible. Be sure to head over to letsgowinpodcast.com for information on my coaching courses, and make sure to follow us on Facebook, Instagram, and LinkedIn at Let's Go Win 365. Let's go win and transcend in life.
This is the Let's Go Win podcast with your host, J.M. Ryerson.